How's it going, everybody? Northwest Fly Guy 89 here, and today I'm going to show you how I tie an October Caddis Euro Nymph fly. In the vise today, we have the what number is this? The Firehole Outdoors 551 in size 14. They're 551 sticks, and then I have a 3.5 millimeter gold slotted bead in here, also from Firehole Outdoors. Pretty simple tie. We're getting into the time where October caddises are coming out. Honestly, one of my favorite times to fly fish. I think the October caddis, of all the caddis flies, is the most beautiful, and so I like to imitate it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take, this is, it's called Burnt Orange, UTC 70 denier. First thing I have to do is, so you kind of see how the bead's sitting down like that, and I come in at about a 45-degree angle and it pops up. I'm just going to make a thread dam right there until it stops wobbling. Yeah, be careful, because sometimes you hear it going tick, 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 tick. Sometimes that'll cut your thread. Take fine tip scissors, tie it off nice and close. Then you're gonna take your thread right back to right about here where the bend of the hook starts to come down. Oh. Next, we're gonna take a few strands of Coq De Leon. We're going to make the tail. So just strip that off. I messed that up. So this one I haven't really stripped, I've mostly cut it. So when I did that, it messed up. It made the tips not align. And not that I really think that matters all too much, but you know, one thing about flies is it's just as much about being pretty, you know, as it is about pleasing the fish. So just about, I don't know, a little bit less than a hook shank. I like my tails kind of long personally, but that's because I just kind of got into Euro nymphing. I can tell you though that of everything I've tried this summer, at least, I've been the most successful on the Euro nymphs. So go ahead and tie it in, and I'm probably blocking it, but just kind of bringing it back, so just like kind of a real sparse tail. And then we're going to take Brassie size gold ultra wire. Let's take some of that off of the spool. I have a special scissors for that I use specifically for cutting things like wire. And I like to, I'm going to throw it all the way up here to the front. I like to put it right there inside the slot, and then just wrap it all the way back. You can kind of see how that makes a really nice thread body there. Now, we're just going to continue to make ourselves a thread body. You want to give your thread a counterclockwise turn to flatten it out. And I'm not super great at making these bodies. I'll try to make it tapered, you know, so it's bigger in the front, shorter or smaller in the back. All right. And I'm just gonna flip it around, make sure that all looks pretty darn good, and it does. All right, so then we're just gonna wrap the wire around. And this is already a pretty heavy fly, so you don't necessarily need to go for a lot of wire. Euro nymphs are designed to cut right through the water column, and with this big of a bead on there, it'll do fine. What I like to do when tying off my wire, so you can kind of see how I've put in a few wraps here, I'm going to pull this straight down. I'm going to flip the thread back behind it, pull it back. I'm going to wrap backwards before going back the other direction. That really seats that in there and lets you really helicopter it off, as it's not wanting to go. because why wouldn't I do that on a video? That's concerning. There we go. All right, so next step is we're going to take some UV cure resin. This is, oh, who makes this? It's called Bone Dry. I think it's Solar Res. I believe it's Solar Res Bone Dry. You don't need to saturate it a whole lot. I've got a bunch of tools underneath my elbows, but just kind of wet it just enough to get the thread wraps wet. And you can kind of see how it's kind of sagging there. I don't want that. So I have 2 bodkins, one of which is this one. It's one of the first bodkins I ever got. It's designated to get all the crap off of it. So I just grab it and I just kind of run it. You can see how, oh, I didn't mean for it to hit that. You can see like kind of how that just disappears, or it, you know, it kind of soaks into the thread wraps there and in between all the wire. I'm gonna take my Loon Infinity light, give this a nice bath of UV light. And rotary vices are really, really, really good anytime you're working with any kind of UV cure resin. Just because it lets you really get it on there evenly. And then of all the UV cure resin I've ever used, this Solar Res Bone Dry is by far the best. It does exactly what it says. Dries on bone dry. There's no playing around with it. There's no issues at all. When I'm done with this, I'm not going to come back to it and have it still be, you know, kind of a little bit wet. So 2 more steps. And cool. I had picked out the perfect feather for this, and looks like it walked away from me. That's fine. So Hareline premium Hungarian Partridge. I like to try to find one where the feathers go just a little bit short of the actual hook. A lot of mine end up turning out a little bit longer. That's fine too. I don't really think it's that big of a deal if you have leggy flies. So what I'm looking for is, you can see right here, the speckled part, and put it up against that. That's about what I want. So you take all this fluffy stuff and you just grab, and you're just going to strip that. Didn't mean to break it off, but that's fine. Grab the front part of it, sweep this back. So now you have a nice triangle for your tie-in point. Wow, seriously? We're gonna cut that. We're gonna tie it in. I'm gonna take that a counterclockwise spin so that my thread jumps backwards. And you can see how when I tie it in, the part of that triangle sits right here in this slot. And that's exactly what I want. That's where I want that stuff to go. Again, for hackle pliers, these Loon hackle pliers have got to be the best I've ever used, and I've spent an obscene amount of money on things like hackle pliers. Sweep these all back so they're all going the same direction. And very carefully, because we got a good tie-in, we don't want to break this. Because this is kind of a shorter feather, I'm just going to wrap it down to the stem. Bring the stem forward about 45 degrees. Give it about 3 wraps going forward and then 2 wraps going back. Let it go. I'm going to take my Dr. Slick fine tip scissors. Get in there and get that stem off. Then I'll sweep back my Hungarian Partridge. So then again, now they're all going the same direction there. Then I'm going to take some Hareline, the heck is this stuff called? I forget what this stuff's called. It's Ice Dub, I want to say. I believe it's Ice Dub. It's by Hareline. This is the peacock color. and just do like a short little collar right there. Take my whip finish tool, do a 4 or 5 turn whip finish. Seat the knot well. I put my thumbnail against the hook point and gently pull back. Take this little cutting edge. Good to go. Now the very, very final step is I'm going to just take some Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails and very, very carefully and very lightly just put a little bit right there on the collar, because that'll just strengthen it up just a little bit. And you have to think, every single thing that you just did, all of your tie-ins rest on that one knot that we just did. So any kind of or a wet fly that I do, I'm gonna be bouncing up against rocks, bouncing up against cover. I always use some kind of head cement. Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails is really, really good. So thank you guys very much for watching, and good luck out there. Tight line.